present on counter counter arguments and how to make a counter argument. Um, so in chapter one, to start, in chapter one, we learned to listen and use these transition words as signals for contrasting ideas. That is, we we signal that we are going to compare two ideas using yet, but, on the contrary, even though, and however. And this is important for when we are making counter arguments because it follows the same pattern. Um, Before I start, let me talk about transition words and signposting. I think this is a good time to review some of these things. In chapter 1, we learned about transition words. And transition words are really important because they make it easier for your listeners to understand your presentation. So, if you give a presentation, make sure that you use them. It makes it easier to understand your argument. Um, there are four different kinds of signposting or transition words that the book lists. The first one is sequencing. This is to show the organization of a presentation. And it goes firstly, to begin with, second, next. They also provide for us, they also list transition words to compare and contrast. We talked about this already. We use that to compare two different ideas when we want to, yeah. Okay. And the third one is when we want to add another idea or when we want to transition from one idea to the next one or from one example to the next example or from one major point to the next major point. Then we would provide signposting language for that, such as and, also, what's more, in addition. And then when we want to end our presentation by summarizing everything that we have talked about, then we would provide different transition words and phrases, such as all in all, to sum up, overall, in short, to summarize. When I end my presentation, I'm going to use one of these. See if you can listen and see which one I used. But today we are going to mainly focus on transition words or signposting for comparison and contrast because it works the same, it follows the same pattern as when we make a counter argument. However, let me start talking about counter arguments. In a debate, speakers often use counter arguments to argue against the opposing view. And speakers use those transition words, to introduce a counter argument. More specific transitions that the book introduces are despite that, however, but that's not completely true. These are useful. Let me talk about how to make a counter argument. So we're going to talk about how we make a counter argument with the transition word, however. And the first thing we need to do is introduce the opposing view, then signal that you will make a counter argument with a transition word, and then give your counter argument. So, for example, I am arguing with my friend. My friend thinks cats are better, but I know dogs are better. And I want to argue against him. He thinks cats are better because they are cuter. So I would say, no. Some people say cats are cuter. Again, introduce the opposing view. However, signal that I'm going to make a counter argument. Dogs are loyal and nice. And give my counter argument. Let me say that one more time. Introduce my opposing view. Some people say cats are cuter. Signal a counter argument with a transition word. However, give the counter argument. Dogs are loyal and nice. I know dogs are better. Some people say cats are cuter. However, dogs are loyal and nice. Let me give you another example. Despite that, again, I'm arguing with my friend. What's better? Are cars better or motorcycles? I know cars are better, but my friend thinks motorcycles are better because they are faster. I want to argue against that. So, first, I introduce the opposing view. He says motorcycles are faster. I signal that I am going to make a counter argument by using a transition word. Despite that, then I give my counter argument. Cars are safer at faster speeds. So one more time, I introduce the opposing view. He says motorcycles are faster. I signal that I will make a counter argument with a transition word. Despite that, and I provide the counter argument. Cars are safer at faster speeds. I know cars are better. He says motorcycles are faster. Despite that, cars are safer at faster speeds. Now let's talk about, but that's not true. But that's not true is not a transition word, and it's not only a transition phrase, but it also works like a sentence. It's a complete idea. But still, it's a transition. So imagine that I am arguing with my friend again, and my friend thinks apples are better, but I know oranges are better, and I want to argue against him. And so I might say, I would introduce the opposing view. John says that apples are healthier than oranges. Signal that I'm going to make a counter argument using a transition word or phrase, but that's not true. And then give my counter argument. Oranges have more vitamin C. One more time. Introduce the opposing view. John says apples are healthier than oranges. Signal that you are going to make a counter argument using a transition word, but that's not true. Then give the counter argument. Oranges have more vitamin C. I know oranges are better. John says that apples are healthier than oranges, but that's not true. Oranges have more vitamin C. So to summarize, in chapter 1, we learned to listen and use these transition words as signals for contrasting. In chapter 2, we learned to use and listen to these transition words as signals for counter arguments. And that concludes that. If you have any questions, please email me and I will be glad to answer any questions or concerns that you may have.